Jordan, welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast.
Yes, back on the wire. Feels good as always. It's not even like a welcoming anymore. It's just like, I'm here.
I know,
I'm
yeah,
back.
exactly. Yeah. I just want to dive right into this because I've been waiting to do this episode, but I've been patient at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the last one we did, we were talking about For All the Dogs, right? I remember when it came out, like I texted you right away.
hmm
I'm like, bro, it's For All the Dogs Day, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want us to do an episode right away because, you gotta sit on the music a little bit and, see how it resonates in order to form a good opinion on it.
100%. Yeah.
So now enough time has passed, I think, for us to actually let the music marinate.
hmm
And I really want to hear your opinion on it, bro. Like I've been waiting to hear this, bro.
Yeah. I mean, again, once you texted me, I gave you a way too early opinion on the album. But that has changed for me. Um, I guess let me, take you back in terms of what it was like, what the experience of listening to it, alongside a lot of reviews and Twitter and all this media that comes around, all these critics and opinions that come around once a Drake album drops, right? So, um, first thing, it got pushed back, right? So it got pushed back to 6 a.m. Usually albums drop at midnight. He pushed it back to 6 a.m. I wonder if people will start doing that because it, it does make sense, especially in the Eastern time zone, in terms of no one's listening to albums at 3, 4 a.m. regardless, right? People get up around 5:30, 6, 7, depending on their morning routine. And then the first thing they're going to do is they're going to throw on that album, right? So again, soft. He has his table for one episode that he does at 12, right? Then, oh wait, actually he did it at 3 a.m. into 6 a.m. when the album came out at 6 a.m. And then off of the first listen, really and truly, um, it did seem a bit all over the place. Uh, I didn't love the sequencing of it. Uh, and it's interesting, or what I got out of it after a few listens is him randomly introducing Bark Radio, um, a nod to the weekend, I assume. And I guess one, I don't know if he's doing it in a sense where he's taking a shot at the weekend because he did have a shot on the album at the weekend, and I did think OVO and EXO did piece it up. So I don't know if he just threw that whole Bark Radio as a parody or a spoof to what the weekend did with Don FM. It did kind of seem like it because it didn't seem like he wanted to copy it throughout the album. It just happened through the later half of the album. But again, off first listen, that's confusing, right? It's just like, okay, Bark Radio is getting introduced with Snoop Dogg out of nowhere. Um, I guess that's cool, like in essence, right? But it's been done before, right? But so again, like it's just kind of random in that sense. Um, but yeah, again, listening from the album from 1 to 23, like it takes some time to get through in terms of there's a lot of music. Uh, some of the songs are longer. I understand that there's interludes that are shorter, so it's more so like a 2021 song album. Um, but yeah, it was similar to, I think we predicted, we gave like a comparison of what it would be like, and it was like CLB and Scorpion, in my opinion, because it was, and I think you weren't too wrong in your analysis or your prediction of the album in terms of it being for all the dogs. In essence, it was for all the dogs in terms of for the women, because there was a lot of him patronizing or no, getting at women and just like saying you don't really need them, you're good by yourself, just be a dog and just go about your way, can come in and out of women's life and do what you have to do. So in essence, it was for the women. It was speaking towards the women. The audience was women, but in essence, it's just like for that jaded man, right? For that man that's jaded, coming out of a relationship or getting over a girl or just like going through things as a single man, like with women, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of content that's based around that, which I don't mind. I appreciate Jada Drake. Like for me in a relationship, like I still appreciate like a jaded man speaking into that content because I know how devious women can be. We understand the culture, so a lot of those things when he's just like getting at women, like it's like one score for the man at the end of the day, right? But so again, in terms of like the content, like like it was okay. The theme, it just didn't seem like a cohesive project. But again, the theme was there. There was a clear theme. The features, Sexy Red, we got that prediction.
Yeah.
Again, it was more so the prediction was people that followed him around tour, right? So Tizo Touchdown, we saw him come up with Drake as well. We've seen Sexy Red on tour with Drake, so that made sense. SZA, I guess I don't know where that came from, but SZA featuring the Yeet feature, that's more so going into a specific target audience, of course. So that song's almost going number one. So that's the features were okay. I'm not mad at the features.
And then he had the J. Cole feature too.
He had the J. Cole feature. I think we need a whole discussion about that song, to be honest. But yeah, let me not go on too much about the album. Again, I think it's a solid project. Over time, I enjoyed it more. I like to listen to that album specifically on shuffle. I think it's a playlist. I see it more as a playlist than a album that you listen to from front to back. It's just throw it on. You're gonna hear a 1-2 songs that you enjoy on the project. Like I understand the scrutiny, and again, it's Drake versus Drake, right? We're comparing him to what he's done in the past or what he hasn't done, right? So I understand that as critics, we over scrutinize his art, and art is there to be scrutinized. So as media people, we are allowed to do such, right? So again, I understand the over criticism of the album. Like, would I say it's his best project? No, I don't. I don't think it's his best work. Well, I say he performed well. Yes, I think he did perform well on the album, right? I think he did perform well on certain songs. He delivered. Some songs we could do without, but again, he put together a collection of 20 songs that are sevens or eights or higher, right? So at the end of the day, I can't knock it and say it was a bad project.
Okay, so if you had to give it a score,
Mhm.
like a score 1 to 10, what would you rank it?
I would rank it like a 7.
7? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you said something that was interesting that I kind of want to build off of because it was
Mhm.
in line with what I wanted to say. When you say that it's Drake versus Drake, right?
Mhm.
So I want to start off by saying that I do notice that there is this trend where every time Drake drops a project, and this started back in his Take Care days, people immediately go to, well, I didn't really like this album. I like the last one better. So like he drops Take Care. Well, I like Thank Me Later better.
Mhm.
Right. Then he drops Nothing Was the Same. Oh, I like Take Care better. Right. Then he does If You're Reading This Is Too Late. I didn't really hear it as much with that one. Right. But then when he did Scorpion,
Yeah.
no, sorry, it was Views. He did
Views.
Views.
Yeah.
Oh, I liked If You're Reading This Is Too Late, Drake better.
Yeah.
And then when he comes with Scorpion, oh, I like Views Drake better.
Hmm.
So I find that this is a pattern, right? And in terms, like for me, when I listened to this album, like, because I already started my day at 5:30.
Hmm.
So then, I just went about my day and I saw that it dropped. I'm okay, so I just had it playing in the background while I'm getting some stuff done, right? And then the first track, I'm like, oh, I like the instrumental on this, right?
Yeah. But the
And then
Frank Ocean sample, yeah.
and I'm like, as I heard the instrumental, I'm like, he's either gonna give us a Tuscan Leather type,
Hmm.
or he's gonna give us the opening track on Views, I believe, is like Keep the Family Close.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I was kind of leaning more towards the Keep the Family Close,
Hmm.
but because the title was Virginia Beach, people thought, oh, it's gonna be a Pusha T diss track. But
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's too obvious. I think
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
using that name to get people to spark people's attention to get that speculation going, but I didn't think he was gonna do it. So when I
Hmm.
heard the beat, I'm like, I think this is gonna be more of a keep the family close type of song. And that's what it was, right? And then the Bark FM thing. So I didn't really take it as he was trolling the weekend, but now
Hmm.
after hearing you say that, I could see that reasoning.
Yeah.
I just personally think, and I told you this before I said on the podcast, I think he has a very, I don't want to say obsession, but he really looks up to the weekend in terms of how he creates music and how he makes music.
100%. I'll agree there. I feel like he sees the weekend, he listens to the weekend's music, and he's like, damn, like there's a reason why he was almost recruited to be a party next door. You know what I mean?
100%.
He like Drake envisioned what party is right now. It just set aside, whatever it's writing or whatever he does for Drake to, I guess, bolster the sound is what he had envisioned for the weekend. But he clearly couldn't keep a guy like the weekend under wraps,
And
right?
that's the
And I
thing.
think as fans, we um, benefited from that for sure, right?
100%. Because
Yeah.
Drake was looking at the weekend to be a party next door type of artist.
Hmm.
But the weekend was looking at a Drake like that's the type of artist I aspire to be,
Yeah.
right? But he just saw an opportunity and he took it, right?
Hmm.
And I think although Drake is really, I told you, I think their dynamic is very strange because if you go back, we did that video last year,
Yeah.
right? Where we broke down our favorite albums of the year. And I talked about how I thought that they were having a very strange petty back and forth. Well, Drake was having a strange petty back and forth with the weekend.
Hmm.
And it all starts with him opening his show in Toronto, right? So Drake, he did that video outside the building. What was it? 11 years ago, I
Yeah.
was sitting right here when I first heard his song,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
and he
this.
was kind
Yeah.
of extending an olive branch, like, hey, if I can like bring up some good memories, maybe he'll bring me out as a guest at the Skydome.
Hmm.
And then it didn't happen both nights,
Yeah.
right? And then I think he felt salty about it. And then I told you he posted that thing on his story. Like people can go back and you guys can watch that video.
Hmm.
But I say all that to say that he looks at the weekend as like a musical muse that he just, for whatever it is, maybe it's the authenticity of the music, maybe it's his writing style, maybe it's the delivery, maybe it's how he's always going outside of the box and one upping himself. It's just
Yeah.
something about it that he admires, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
I
like a
think
Professor X Magneto type of rivalry in that sense, where they respect
exactly.
each other, they respect each other's craft, but they also see each other as competitors, but in a respectful sense, like almost like a Ronaldo Messi type environment as well.
Yeah, and I think well now like I saw like some of these fan pages on social media. I saw that now that Drake unfollowed the weekend on Instagram.
Mm, mm.
So that
Well,
kind of makes
again,
me
there was a shot at the weekend on the album. Like he did
yeah, so
say on Members Only, I believe, he said girls are riding around to party, not the weekend, something along those lines, right?
yeah,
So
so I think there is like he has a little animosity there. And I
Yeah.
think it just feels like, yo, I've always bigged this guy up. I've always showed him love. I've extended olive branches. And
Yeah.
he's always like, he never, publicly does the same for me. Right.
Yeah.
And I think he feels a way about it, right?
Yeah. I agree because Drake is a guy. He does it with J. Cole. He does it now with Kendrick, but all the other like people he'll try to work with and try to like, you know, build some type of friendship with or shout them out, or you see him with Future or whoever it is, like he likes relationships,
100%.
but he likes to be in control of what that relationship is.
Exactly. And he even said it himself, like when he did his interviews with like when he's done his interviews in the past, like the most recent one with Elliot Wilson, when he was like all those years that had passed that we never made music together, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I know for the past 12 years, he regrets and it bothers him that he's never been able to collaborate with this dude.
Yeah.
And I think the Weeknd looks at it like I'm making great music on my own, so I don't really need to collaborate with you. Because
Well, yeah,
the last
yeah,
time they worked together was like 10 years ago. It was on, I believe it was Kissland on Live For,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That was the last time they ever collaborated together. Never
yeah.
collaborated since. And I just don't think the Weeknd feels the need to work with this guy.
That's what I'm saying. Drake more needs the I guess the popular audience in terms of like what other people like he needs the hot rapper or the hot artist to I guess balance off of, right? To I guess create together. Weekend could just go Weekend's more Kanye, right? Weekend could create through his own environment that he puts together. Whatever idea he has set forth, he can just put it together, and it's gonna be different. It's gonna be unique to the Weekend, and it's not gonna be anything that you heard ever before.
Yeah,
Drake, it's gonna be familiar sounds, right? That the I guess the general public that they're already aware of, right?
yeah,
It's just more the excitement of, oh, it's this attached to Drake. It's this artist attached to Drake. This artist attached to Drake. That's the excitement that you get off of Drake, and Drake knows that as well, right? So
yeah.
he uses that as leverage. When Weekend has I don't need to work with this artist. I don't need to. Like, if they want a feature from me, sure. But is Weekend seeking out these artists to put together a project? No. Will he be on their project and do a favor? For sure. But will he be like, I need to pull from here, pull a sexy red, pull like Weekend's never doing that,
No.
right?
And
He's not
that
bringing in the hardest artists and just working it just because it's gonna sell, right?
yeah, and that's one thing too that I wanted to add in, right? In terms of the album or just Drake's body of work as a whole, I do find that he works with a lot of familiar faces, right? Which is not a bad thing because it's who he feels comfortable with. They understand his artistry, they understand how to get the most out of his sound. I get all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key difference between the both of them is if you look at, from album to album, The Weeknd's always switching out his producers, right?
Yeah,
And he's trying to capture new sounds.
yeah.
So you'll see him work with like a Gesaffelstein and, now he's working with
Swedish House Mafia.
Swedish
Yeah.
House Mafia. He's working with this guy at OPN.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's been doing a lot of work with Mike Dean, right? So he's
Mm-hmm.
always switching out his producers. And it's not that he's not loyal to the people he works with. It's just that sometimes you got to step out of the people you're comfortable with to experiment and try new things, to explore a different side of your game, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Drake, I think that's one of the things that he's missing. It's
Mm-hmm.
I respect 40. He's great at what he does. He's an incredible producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to expand your world now beyond just 40 and the usual people.
Yeah.
Tapping into some new producers that could maybe help, that may have a different vision for you musically than you would have even thought. And maybe that can open up a whole new door for him.
100%. But you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He kind of did do that with Honestly Nevermind. to be honest,
And I
in
spoke,
terms of
and I thought the album had potential. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like
So again, he does try. Like again, honestly, if we're gonna criticize him for that, he did try that with Honestly Nevermind, and again, he received a lot of hate from it. And I feel like, as we'll get to soon, right, when we get into Joe Budden and everything, but he sees everything, right? Drake is one of those guys. He's looking at comments. He is very aware of what's going on within the culture, whether it's through his friends or what he sees, but he is very aware of trends, right? And him being aware of trends, you could see that any criticism he receives, he tries to counter it by giving fans what they want, right? Honestly, Nevermind comes out. Oh, we don't want to hear Drake like on these dance songs, these dance records, these house songs, these electric songs. Like we want to hear him rapping, right? He drops Her Loss. That's like, yo, shut up. Here you go, right? So he puts that out now. I don't think Her Loss had. I think Her Loss still had some criticism early, but it didn't last that long. And now he's like, okay, boom. You should be happy with that. I feel like at the end of the day, the majority of critics were happy with that album, right? And now he does For All the Dogs, right? Now with For All the Dogs, like in this short time frame, he's putting out a lot of music, right? And it's like that's a lot of verses, that's a lot of just in the studio working with people, just like a lot of time, a lot of effort that he's putting in. And I think it's unfair for us to over criticize the art because one, he's been doing this for 15 years now. He's been, if not one, two every year, right? In terms of popularity, in terms of like the sound, in terms of the brand and him as an artist, right? So in terms of what he's put out so far, it's like cut him some slack. Like
I agree.
he's put out so much music. He's given the fans so much. Where Kendrick will put out his last project, and Kendrick is gone. We're not hearing from Kendrick. Drake's the only one that's out here in the trenches, giving us music yearly, whether it's a feature, whether it's a smudge project, whether it's a Scary Hours, an EP. Like he's putting out a lot of music, a lot of writing, and he's saying a lot of stuff. So I feel like a bit of it is, I guess, listeners' fatigue with Drake. And I guess in terms of the same producers, it's the same sound that we're getting. You get that singing and rapping Drake, and again, he feels the need. I said that. I think he said that in an interview with Elliot Wilson, where he feels the need that he has to rap and he has to sing on every project. Right? He can't just do a full rap project. He can't just do a full singing project. Right? And with this project For All the Dogs, there's something on that project for everyone. That's why I see it as a playlist, something you could throw on shuffle. There's a Bad Bunny song that's gonna work for the Latino culture. There's a Houston, Atlanta, Southern song with Sexy Red and SZA that's gonna work down south. There's your Toronto song, The Party. There's your song with Yeet that's gonna work for that younger demographic. There's his singing and rapping songs. There's Tizo Touchdowns, which is like a new target demographic as well. Like there's still the Drake that we know and we love in that album as well. So when I sit back and analyze it from that point of view, it's like he gave us a lot.
I
You know
agree.
what I mean? And
I
I
agree.
just still feel like I'm glad he's taking a break. I'm curious to see life or music without Drake's influence in these next couple of years, as we see hip hop in a slight decline right now.
Just a slight.
And a downward trend. A downward
Like,
trend.
here's the thing with Drake, right? I don't look for the spitting bars, storytelling Drake. He had his era where he was doing that, right?
Mhm.
So to me, it's ridiculous amount of pressure that every time you put something out, immediately it gets compared to the last thing. Oh, it's not as good as the last album, right? That to me is an unfair standard. Like the expectation is that every time he drops, he has to give a classic. No, he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just the fact that he has, multiple classics in his catalog is more than what majority of artists will ever achieve in their career, right? So
Right.
I agree, it is an unfair standard and it's an unfair burden and expectation that's placed on him, right? But this is an expectation that's placed on other artists too. It's just that they tune it out and do what they want to do anyways.
100%. Yeah.
Like okay, behind me, you see I have that like that Steve Jobs poster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I like it is because it has a quote on it, but basically what he is trying to say, to give a summary of it, is that don't be limited to other people's thinking. Do what is right to you.
Oh,
So
that's ironic. That's ironic because the Joe Budden podcast, right? I know we're getting there, but he had Steve Jobs as the cover art for the episode he put out behind the Patreon.
Really?
Behind the paywall, he had Steve Jobs as the cover art for that episode in his response to Drake's comment.
Okay, so that's very okay. I didn't even know that, but
yeah, so that's ironic. That's ironic. Again, I didn't get to listen to the episode because it was on Patreon, and I don't subscribe to Joe Budden's Patreon. But that I guess that makes sense in terms of a response to Drake. Yeah.
Like the quote on the poster behind me, I got that when I was in undergrad, and I'm not saying it word for word. I'm paraphrasing, but it says, your time is limited. Follow your intuition because in the end, it truly knows what you want to become. That's a paraphrase of what that quote actually says, right? But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because people are always going to have an expectation, especially when you're like a creator. There's always going to be an expectation of what they want you to go back to, or what they want you to sound like.
Yeah.
But you have to do what you believe is right. And I think the fact that Drake is now taking this break, he can evaluate, because only he can answer truthfully.
Yeah.
The music that he's been putting out the past few years, is that music that's been true to you and where you were at creatively, or was it trying to keep up with the industry and keep up with the trends in order to stay relevant? I don't know the answer. That's something he has to reflect and think about within himself, right?
Yeah.
I can only just look at the art that he's delivering. So based on the art that he's delivering, to me, it's good music, right? He's putting out good music. It's not the greatest I've ever heard from him, but it's not the worst I've ever heard from him. So with this album, I'll be a little bit more generous than you. I'm going to say that I'll give it a 7.5.
Okay.
I just like the way that it sounded. I thought it was a good album, right?
Yeah.
He delivered on a lot of the expectations, because we did the episode breaking down our expectations and what we predicted.
Yeah.
So he met a lot of those predictions. Like we both said that there'd be a sexy red involvement. There was.
Yeah.
I said that he would make an album that gravitates more towards women.
Yeah.
And I was kind of shaky on that prediction because when I heard the SZA song, I'm like, okay, that's where he's going.
Yeah.
But then he dropped the timestamp song, and then I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm. And then when I heard the actual album, then I felt confident in my prediction.
Yeah. You're pretty spot on, to be honest. Yeah. Outside of like me thinking that like, oh, he's just gonna have like Lotto and all these people on it to make it like super for the bitches, but like in essence, the content and the theme was directed at women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought it was too, right? But again, like the music sounded good to me. So I didn't really mind that's what he was doing, because that was my expectation going into it, right? And then, he did stuff enough I know we can kind of use this to segue into like the Joe Budden conversation, but he threw in
Mhm.
some stuff in there enough to create, chatter
Yeah.
around who was he talking about, right? Because people are saying, "Oh, he got at Rihanna, like he was
Hmm.
dissing Rihanna on the album." Like
Yeah.
you mentioned, there was like those subtle jabs at the weekend that he took. I only caught
Yeah.
the one where he said the party next door line, then he said the one about the weekend. I only caught that one.
Hmm.
And then I thought the Bark FM thing, I thought that was him kind of like trying to show he was inspired. But now that I'm looking at it the way you explained in that
It could
context,
be either side. It could be either side of it. You never know, right?
and then so you're right, he did give a little bit to everybody.
Yeah.
So I would say if you took CLB, because I think there was a lot of CLB in there,
Yeah.
I think if you take her loss,
There's her loss in there because
yeah,
his style of rapping and the little Yachty, um, I guess production or involvement, is why that her loss, the touch of her loss, is still within the
yeah.
album on his style of rapping is still very um relatable to her loss.
And then I think he took small elements of views, not a lot, but small elements of views.
Hmm.
And then I think he crafted it in the mold of a more life, right?
Okay.
So I think,
You don't feel the Scorpion, the B side of Scorpion. I do in essence of the more so R&B focused songs
mhm.
and the jadedness of Drake.
I could see that. Like I could see that because if my memory serves me correct, I do think like the B side of Scorpion was very
R&B heavy.
R&B and female friendly.
Yeah.
So I could see him drawing from that playbook again. So I'll give that one to you. I think there
Hmm.
was elements of it in there. And I think More Life even had like wasn't like 23 or 25 songs.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of followed that
Where do
mold.
you see the more life in it though?
I'm saying in terms of the fact that there's 23 songs.
Okay.
So you see how
Okay.
you're saying it gives you a playlist, how
Hmm.
you're saying it gives you a playlist thing?
Yeah.
When he dropped More Life, remember he didn't market it as an album or a mixtape.
No,
He
it's supposed to be
marketed
a
it as a
playlist.
playlist. So if
Correct.
you're getting that sense, then he probably was doing a little bit of More Life in terms of structure.
Yeah.
But in
In
terms of
sequence. Yeah.
yeah, but in terms of sound, I got small hints of views,
Hmm.
maybe a dash of Scorpion,
Yeah.
and then there was CLB in there
Yeah.
and Her Loss. So I would say those four projects, I
Yeah.
would say comprise the actual sound of this album.
Hmm.
And yeah, this can kind of segue us into the whole Joe Budden situation because I
Yeah.
mean I give it 7.5, you gave it a 7.
Yeah.
Joe Budden had some very strong opinions about the album,
Yeah.
and
He
then
did.
Drake had a very strong, even stronger response to what he said.
Hmm.
So, what did you make of that whole thing that they had going on?
Yeah. So I'm an avid Joe Budden podcast listener. And I listened to the episode where, again, he drops his podcast episode on the Saturday. He records on the Friday. So in terms of the album came out 6 a.m. on that Friday, like at the end of the day, he has to do a show, right? And over at that network, content is important, right? And Joe in his seat at that network, he's like he's the star player, right? He is the one that has to push or push the car for it to go, right? And everyone else will support him as such, right? Um, so again, Joe pushed an envelope, right? Again, the album just dropped. Probably listened to it once or twice, and again, I respect Joe's opinion, and I think he's very wise and he's a critical thinker, right? And he's a wordsmith. And when he goes about how he analyzes and responds to something, like he's able to pull something from it, right? So from him listening to it once or twice or how many ever times he listened to it before recording, yes, I understand him critiquing Drake based on the content of the album in terms of him mentioning a 25-year-old, him mentioning a 21-year-old, him mentioning like name dropping Haley, Nadine, Chardine, all that, right? Like you understand, like for sure he can criticize the what he's talking about in terms of the content of the album, but again, like that's just one aspect of his review. Joe also said he did like the album, but again, Joe, and it's a clip, right? A clip can get spun in a very negative lens, right? So they took a clip of him saying, "Stop hanging out with 25-year-old girls, hang out with people your age," and that is what I guess hurt Drake, right? Or Drake found disrespect in that stance. All right. And of course, like you're gonna feel disrespect because you like Drake's not hanging out with Kai Cenat, Bobby, da da da, but he is a chameleon in terms of he knows what the culture is and he knows what people are interested in and what people are gravitating to, and he knows how to utilize a trend. He's a marketing genius. So when he's doing all this, he knows he does it for a reason. And Drake has continually done what he does, and his team and the brand has done what they've done because they understand what the trends are and what the target audience is. So it's not so much like what he speaks on is what he does or what he goes through. Yes, there's probably like he's very authentic and he does get a bit deeper into his lifestyle, but he's also pulling that from like a one vacation or one trip or da da da, and he's writing it, and and that's what he's putting out as art, right? And it's realistic things that, again, we can't all compare or we can't all understand what Drake goes through, but like there's some things you can pull from, like I've that's happened to me, or yeah, these girls always move like that. Like you can understand that. So the I disagree with Joe because one, you just listen to the album, like you had to put something together. You have people are all waiting for your review. You have to give a review within a short time frame, and then of course Drake didn't take it how well, who knows, right? He got what, who knows? Right? At the end of the day, it's all smoke and mirrors. Joe could have done this, clipped it up, because he wanted to get Drake's attention, similar to Charlemagne. And it's just unfortunate that we live in such a toxic, negative generation where, like, it's more popular to hate rather than just saying, "Oh yeah, I loved it." That's not going to get clipped up, right? If you say, "Oh, this is an amazing project, it was flawless, there's nothing I didn't like," no, you're going to have to hate on it or find some type of negative component to the album and go with it and scream and yell and be theatric, because that's going to be trendy. And they're doing the same thing. Joe's doing that to gain an audience, to gain traction, to get something trendy, to be out there, because it's media at the end of the day, right? Like you want to be trending, you want to be the talk of the discussion, you want to be in the Reddit groups, you want to be all about that, right? Drake's doing the same thing because he understands the audience, he understands this generation, so he goes in and he talks about what this generation wants to talk about and what they want to hear. If Drake does his 444, they're going to kill him. 110%. If 36 or 37-year-old Drake is here talking about investing and all this, like, come after her loss, what are we talking about here?
And
Right? So that's where I'm like, Joe, come on. Come on. Like, Drake has time to do all that whenever he wants. So for you to get on him talking about hanging out with young people, all this, when you are a trick daddy or known for being a trick daddy, like you can't be hypocritical in that sense, knowing that this is your bag. You're in the strip club. You know what this is going to do in the strip club. So, again, Joe, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because, again, you're creating content, right? You need content that's going to be trendy or be clipped up or get some type of attention. He was successful in that, right? It's just unfortunate that it has to be hate that leads to something being a moment.
When I look back, when I think about this whole situation, I think there's many layers to it, right? The first thing that I notice is that there's a lot of projection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the last episode that we did on the expectations, you said, and you called it spot on. You said, Drake responded to Charlemagne, and I know Joe Budden wished that was him, right? And you just said that as a joke, obviously, but there's always truth behind some jokes because I'm sure right now Joe Budden is like celebrating I'm sure he's celebrating in his house that Drake gave him that attention.
Podcast numbers are up.
100%.
Podcast numbers are up. Everything's up.
So I think a lot of people's issues with Drake, to be honest, is projection because they're looking at him and his age and what they think he should be doing, what he should be talking about, and what his subject matter should revolve around, right? And, maybe I'm guilty of it too, to a certain extent, because I never got at him for his music, right? I've always just said, to me, it's just the antics of the fingernail stuff and the different color clips in his hair.
Yeah.
It's not something I would personally do myself, right? But if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. So I think a part of it is like there's that projection of what they expect. Because even too, I heard, like obviously what Joe Budden said, like, yo, stop. I don't want to see you hanging out with Kai Cenat. I don't want to see you talking to these 21 and 25-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Because if you were that age, maybe you wouldn't hang out with a Kai Cenat. And you maybe talk to girls that age.
Right.
It doesn't mean he has to. And this is where sometimes being a fan of someone, it can kind of cross that line into where it gets a little bit toxic and unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because when people are a fan of someone, there's a certain, I don't want to say entitlement, but there's a certain level of control that people think they have over the object of their fandom.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they want to be able to say like, oh, why are you wearing that? Why are you saying that? Why are you hanging out with those people? Why are you with that person?
Yeah.
Like there's a certain level of entitlement or control that people think that they have over that object of their admiration. And I think Joe Budden kind of was expressing that when he reviewed the podcast, right? And that's why I'm glad that you and we took that time to at least come back and do this episode and have a conversation. Because imagine if we recorded the same day it dropped. The opinion you gave me now was vastly different
100%.
The opinion you gave me when I texted you that morning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You had time to sit on the music. And when you sent me that response, I said to you, I'm like, I want to give it some time.
Yeah.
Because I suspect that this is the kind of album that is going to age well, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's going to age well, especially as hip hop continues the steep decline that it's on.
Yeah. Yeah. They're going to be looking back for all the dogs for sure.
Yeah. We're going to look back at this and say, like, this album was a bright spot in a dark time.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
And even with Charlemagne, when Charlemagne, he was saying, I was hoping that, Drake would talk about, getting married and starting a family. That's because that's what you valued at that age. It doesn't mean that's what he has to value, right? Like, would it be nice to hear him talk about, picking up his son from school and helping him with his homework and being more involved in his life? I mean, maybe it would make for good content. I don't know. But like,
you exactly.
Yeah, like maybe it would. I don't know, right? And even with 444, like I thought that was a good Jay-Z album, but it is widely panned as not being a good album by him.
Yeah.
Like a certain demographic of people like it, yes, but a wider audience doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And Jay-Z was the same guy that told Nas, are you trying to kick knowledge? And then 16 years later, you're kicking knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to, like, people need time to evolve and grow into who they're going to become. Maybe one day Drake will become that type of artist. Right.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what is happening is I think there was projection.
Hmm.
And I would say like when I read that response that Drake made, I was like, damn, bro. Like this guy brought this guy
Yeah,
brought a gun to a fist fight, bro.
yeah,
Right. But at the
yeah,
same time, like Joe's been taking a lot of these like little pot shots at him for so
yeah.
long. And I
So
think
long. Yeah.
and Drake, he's someone who's he's very into social media. Like I can
Hmm.
tell he's really into social media. He cares about these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, he took that person, especially when it's a media personality that you know has a certain level of influence that
Hmm.
can control narratives to an extent.
Exactly. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
also too, I think he admires him. And that's another thing I want to discuss is because Joe Budden was, people were referencing that video where people were like, "Oh, Drake is a fan of Joe Budden, and he went to one of his shows or something." Like, listen,
Yeah, yeah, and he used to rap like, and Drake used to rap like Joe and all that. Yeah, I've heard it all.
listen,
Yeah,
you can respect someone's artistry, right? You can still respect someone's artistry, but you can still be able to say that, yo, like, just because I respected what you did as an artist, it doesn't mean that you really panned out to be something, right?
hmm,
So he's not really wrong in how he assessed his career. Like, yeah, I
yeah,
respected your artistry because maybe you're good at, like, putting words together and, your similes and metaphors were on point. But that doesn't necessarily mean now that you're inspiration. He just respected how you did it.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's unbelievable, really and truly. And again, it's they have an interesting dynamic. I feel like Drake keeps his friends close and his enemies even closer, and that's why he's able to always get at them in a very unique way, right? When he's getting at enemies such as Pusha T, for example, or an ASAP Rocky or Joe Budden, like he's very aware to the finer details, right? So when he's writing up a long post like that, you can see how detailed. It's not just saying nonsense. It's you can see how clever he
Mhm.
is with these responses to these individuals that want to get at him,
Yeah,
right?
the Nietzsche genes, bro. That kills me, bro. But
Do
that
one
is
of
their
those, do your things while I do my
yeah.
things.
But that is their audience though. Like
Yeah,
that is who that is who Joe Budden would attract, right? Like, he's not gonna
yeah,
attract the mass audience that Drake has. At least not as a rapper. He's not doing it, bro.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no one's gonna be pumping it up, bro. Like so that's just what it is. And I think, so I think that was a very strong response to give back to the guy, but I think he had to also let it be known, like, yo, listen, like, you can't just talk to me any which way you feel like it. Like, there has to be
Yeah,
a certain level of respect that you have to show. Like,
100%. Yeah,
you can't just listen to an album the first day and form an opinion and like, because this is content. This stuff's forever, bro.
yeah. And this is
So,
this is Drake. There's not like I understand like we're criticizing, we're critical about a new artist, right? Or artists are just getting going, right? And we say we like their first project, their debut project, their second project. I didn't like XYZ. This is an artist that has been around and at the top of the game for damn near 15 years, giving out Michael Jackson type level of performance and greatness, right? So talking to him or trying to say how he should be acting or maneuvering or what he should be rapping about, it sounds crazy. And then it just sounds crazy because it's like what do you mean? Like this is a guy that is dominating. He first week he did 410K. You know what I mean? So like like that's why for Drake it's unfortunate that he can't really just like block it out. But I appreciate him almost being aware. It's almost like he doesn't ignore fans or the audience or the media. He's very, very well aware. He's very in tune, right? So you got to appreciate that he actually listens or he tries to like tap in to the culture and he doesn't just like shy away from it, because it's like we feel like heard in that sense. And in return, he always delivers year to year to year. So again, with all this, and again, I'm glad that Drake's taking his time away, his health concerns and everything. Pray that he's good and he can come back and continue to be that dominant force in the music industry that he's been for the last 15 years. So again, I think it's good I think it's good for the music industry just to take a real look in the mirror and say, what are we in the next 5 to 10 years? What is it going to look like when we don't have a Drake project to discuss from a podcast lens? They built up this Drake project for probably 3 weeks of content, saying, oh, he dropped this single, or he dropped this cover art, or he dropped this Adonis, Ray Tay Tay, right? When you remove such a huge figure from the media space, this is like when LeBron leaves the NBA. What is the conversation looking like? Jason Tatum is had another good game. Oh, Giannis, he's killing it with Dame. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's like we have to show a different level of appreciation and not just kind of brush it off when we're discussing his greatness, because it's pivotal, right? We're going to feel it when he is absent from this space, right? So again, yes, we can criticize it as much as we want, but it shouldn't be a criticism where it's like, you need to change.
Yeah. And
it should never be that.
Yeah, and there's 2 points that I want to say. It's this weird cycle where, when you're on the come up and you're like the underdog, everyone loves you and they root for you and they want to see you win. And then you win, they're happy for you. I'm glad that I'm glad that you did it, And then you win again. And then you win again. And then you just keep winning. Then
we always see this in everything. Sports and music, yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes a form of resentment, right? And in one of the episodes I did, I talked about this book, The 48 Laws of Power. One of the books, and one of the laws in it is that, never appear too perfect, because it'll only make people dislike you more. So one thing about Drake is, musically, he shows us his vulnerabilities, and like you read headlines about the imperfections in his life, but professionally, like, the guy's goated. Like, the guy has done anything and everything you can think of, right? So a lot of people look at that with envy, and then it starts to become hatred, and it becomes a lack of appreciation that people have. And I do think that this break coming up, I think it'll do wonders for him, just on a mental health level, on a physical health level, creatively. I think it'll be great for him, right?
Yeah.
And it'll give him time to, bond with his son more on a familial level, right? So I think overall it'll do wonders for him. I wish him the best. I have nothing negative to say about the guy.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of love and respect for him. I'm going to include that in there too. Because truthfully, I do have a lot of love and respect for the guy. Like, at the end of the day, like, I grew up on this man's music. You know what I mean? Like when I was going from high school to undergrad to adulthood, he was
always there.
He was always there dropping heat. You know what I mean? So I have to have like respect and appreciation for it. Like, I can tell you exactly where I was when he dropped Take Care, what stage of my life I was at, and what that album, meant to me, right? So I do have that love and respect and appreciation for him and what he does. So, definitely well deserved for him, with him taking that break. But another thing that I want to discuss, because we're talking about like hip hop as a whole, right? It's a very weird genre and industry, because we're the only ones that talk about, oh, this guy's so old. Why don't you just retire? You're so old, just retire. And I don't see this in any genre of music. Like
rock, country.
None of that. Like, what's that guy? Like Miley Cyrus's dad, Billy Ray Cyrus, right?
Yeah.
he could announce an album tomorrow and people will be excited. Oh, we're
Sold
getting
out shows, sold out
yeah.
dates. Yeah.
Oh, we're
Aerosmith.
getting a Billy
Yeah.
Ray Cyrus album.
Yeah.
He's my
Yeah.
favorite, right?
Yeah.
And they'll have excitement. But like if a Drake or you know, or one of the like if a guy like Drake says, yo, I'm dropping an album, they're gonna bring up his age immediately into the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, if he's gonna rap about that young people stuff, I don't want to hear. I want to hear him talk about that grown man shit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we age our artists out.
Yeah.
And it's a very strange thing that we do. I think with him
Yeah.
taking a break, I think it's a good thing that he's doing it because it's going to give the industry time to, like you said, do some soul searching because labels are not checking for rappers anymore.
No, not at all. Not at all. Or even if it's short, it's like, okay, you dropped a project, a music video. All right, go on tour. When are you going to drop another one?
Yeah.
There's nothing unique about it, right? It's just, okay, we listen. That's it. All right, you might build up your album and then you build up a tour. And then, yeah, you're just a worker.
Yeah, it's weird. Like what was it? Last week, I saw this thing on Twitter, right? Or X, whatever people want to call it. But I saw a picture of Paul McCartney from the Beatles. I personally never listened to the Beatles before, right? But he posted a picture of him and his wife. I think either it was his birthday or her birthday. I can't remember, but it was just him basically saying, celebrating this day with my beautiful wife. And then I was looking at the replies and everyone's like, oh, thank you for all the great memories. Thank you for the music. Thank you. You know, like you're amazing. You're awesome. All these kind things that they're saying. But then let Drake post a picture of him at dinner. Yo, why is he wearing that? Why is he wearing that? What is he doing? It's going to be a complete opposite reaction. So it's a very strange thing that's going on in the genre, right? And I think it's gone to a point now where it can't survive. Like this is not like you're always
not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Like you're always going to look for new, younger talent, and then what happens with the one? What happens with the ones you just discovered? They get older, so you toss them away.
Yeah. I mean, hey, speaking about tossing people away, Jada Pinkett is back in the news.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my God!
At this point,
when is she gonna give it up? I don't know. I don't under like how many times can she bring up her different type of love with Tupac? What are we doing?
At this point, bro, I have to put this on Will because this is something that needs to be regulated right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you just detach yourself from that situation.
100%.
Like right away. You know what? Like you could try once or twice. Like you know how it goes in a marriage, in a relationship, whatever. You try once or twice, but then when she's out here moving like this, you're talking about rest in peace, rest his soul, Tupac. Why do you keep bringing up this man's name?
I think he imprinted her, to be honest. There's a strange dynamic that happens with girls, like when they're younger. You know, there's always that one that they think got away.
That one relationship, yeah, sure.
And then they end up with the person who wasn't necessarily always their first choice. Like, you know, that happens in some cases, right? To be honest, in my opinion, like my assessment of it is that she loved off Tupac, but he had her friend zoned. Like he didn't really see her in that way. Yeah. Like he was kind of smart enough to know that, yo, this woman is like batshit crazy. I want nothing to do with it. Right? I think he was smart enough to see that real quick. So he just distanced himself, right? Yeah. And the fact that he did that only made her want him more.
Want him more. Yeah.
But then, you know, unfortunately, he had an untimely death. Yeah. And then Will Smith at that time was like this burgeoning star. Like he was making a name for himself in music, and then he was transitioning. You know, he had Fresh Prince at the time, and he's getting into film. Yeah. So he was like this beta male that made a lot of money and had a lot of fame and had a lot of success. So it made sense for her to go with him because he was a safe option. And, you know, many women nowadays, You know, they're really heavy into feminism and they always look at everything like a competition with men.
Yeah.
So she saw that Will was a star that she would never be.
Mm-hmm.
So
This is
that
their get back.
yeah, so that jealousy that she always felt that Will is the man that I could never be. He was a star that I could never become. You know, on top of the fact that she always felt that Tupac was her soulmate, but she ended up with this guy. So now she's resenting Will on two different levels.
Mm-hmm.
One, because he's not Tupac, and two, because he's just way more successful than she could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And then, you know, combine that with now she's getting older, you know, women, they have kids,
Mm-hmm.
and then the midlife crisis kicks in.
Yeah.
So it is just a snowball of a lot of BS that she's now
Yeah.
just using to like bury Will Smith.
Yeah.
And Will just doesn't, to me, he just doesn't have the backbone and the courage to just walk away.
I think Will is also at a point where he does not give two shits about. Well, we see it with like him being on Instagram, or I guess the last couple of years, how he is on Instagram in terms of like he's just on a almost like a cloud nine of living life and doing thrilling like adventures, right? So I guess he is detached from it, but he's also respectful. So he's not going to turn around and do her dirty the way she's doing him dirty. So again, he's a better man than me in that
100%.
lens. But I mean, it's just we get him slapping Chris Rock, and now this story comes out about Chris Rock asked out Jada on a date and all this other nonsense, and then for her to turn around and say, "Oh, yeah, like he was acting out of character on that Oscar night. Like he should have never done that. Like he tried to calm Will down, saying like it's not about that. Like Chris said sorry. Like after a man comes to your defense and does all this after you've been berating him for weeks prior to the Oscars, red table, all this August Alsina stuff, and now for you to come back for part three, the sequel, like still bringing up Tupac just because you have this book to promote. Like, why do you have to leverage bashing a man to build up what you're trying to promote? Like, it doesn't get any nastier than that. And all the smoke, I don't know. I don't really listen to that podcast, really and truly, but like, I don't understand how all the smoke is interviewing Jada Pinkett like she is in sports, like she is in the WNBA, like we don't have the WNBA finals going on right now. And you choose to bring on Jada Pinkett-Smith to bash Will Smith and promote her book and talk about Tupac.
I get that he's a happy-go-lucky guy, right? If the disrespect is becoming public now, that means there's a lot of disrespect that was happening privately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, he should have right then and there. And I know it's very difficult and it's like challenging, but sometimes you got to know when to cut your losses and walk away, right?
Yeah.
And for example, like Jeezy, out of the blue one morning, we just find out that he's filing for divorce from her.
Yeah.
I don't know like what happened with them. Nothing has been put out there, but it's probably something that's not even to the degree of what Jada has been doing with him.
Yeah.
But Jeezy is mentally trained enough to know that like, hey, this today
we're not going for that.
Yeah, today it's this. Tomorrow, if I don't do anything about it now, it's only going to progressively get worse.
100%.
So he's cutting his losses early and leaving before it could get to that point. I think that's where Will messed up, right?
Yeah.
And it's sad because when you're getting married, you take certain vows that like, hey, we're gonna through thick and thin, we're gonna work through this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
But respect has to be the foundation.
Yeah.
Of any successful relationship, right? Marriage especially, respect has to be the foundation. And for the things that I outlined, it doesn't seem like the respect was ever there.
No.
And Will Smith, I think he was just a young guy, very naive, and he
Yeah.
just went with it. And it's to the point of no return, obviously.
Yeah.
And even now, she's saying we've been separated for the past 7 years. So what the hell was all that foolishness about August Alsina and all that stuff that was going
Or
on?
what? Like, I just don't understand. Like, what is separation to you guys? Like, I see you guys together. There's family vacations. Like, I there must be a different type of separation that I'm not aware of. But again, like, you're together at the Oscars. Why are you guys there sitting together if you guys are separated? You like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's a lot of just BS.
Yeah, and she said we're separated for like, what did she say, 7 years or something
Yeah,
like
yeah, seven. Yeah, I think it was 7 or 9, 7 to 9 years, something like
that?
that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you're separated for 7 years, so that will put you at 2016, right? So
yeah,
that means we had the Alcina situation, right? We had the Oscar slap, all that stuff went on. If you guys were separated, why do you feel the need to have to clear the air on a
yeah.
red
Why
table
we having
talk
a red
about it?
table talk? Like,
For what?
we're separate. I thought we were separated.
Yeah. So why not just put out a joint statement like, hey, we're separated right now, and then eventually just go through a divorce and then just call it quits. But you see, that's where, and I don't even believe they were separated. I think that's a lie. I think
Uh-huh.
she's just going out there publicly again to just make Will look bad.
Yeah,
I think it's a straight lie.
yeah,
But it's something that he should have done very early on to to just get out while you're
yeah.
ahead.
Again, but I understand that, but the children make it difficult, right? Jaden's growing up, and then you have Willow, and they're both thriving stars or budding stars, right? So again, a lot of that comes from Will, right? And his influence on them in the acting realm and in music, right? So again, him being such an influential father, I feel like that even digs deeper into Jada Pinkett having being more resentful towards Will, right? Because they naturally just gravitate to Will, right? And his talent and his ability to like be a father or teach them things or be like the leader in the family. Cause now it leaves Jada like, what am I? Like, how do I garner my attention? Like, I need something. And then there comes the red table, and then comes her book and her leveraging Will through hate to gain popularity and attention, right? And it's again, it just goes back to the same thing, right? It's just unfortunate that hate and resentment is more popular than being positive and love and respect of an individual, right?
Yeah, but it's unfortunate, but that's just like the way it works. Like right now, okay, earlier I just did like a little soliloquy talking about the respect and appreciation I have for Drake, right?
Uh-huh.
People will hear that, it'll go nowhere.
Yeah,
But if I was like yelling at the top of my lungs, Drake is trash, Drake is this,
you be everywhere.
that's more likely to garner a response, right? So I think
Yeah,
just the way social media is constructed, I think that hate and that resentment is just designed, is what draws people in, right?
yeah. The people want the drama, right? People want to be able to just like talk about a dramatic situation, right? Again, here we are talking about a dramatic situation because again, it's what is feed to us, right? We can't talk about, oh, look at this couple, like they're doing great. Like I one day I want to be like them. No, because like it just doesn't work. It doesn't
And bro,
create clicks.
uh, a point just came to my mind that I really want to get out there before I lose this train of thought, right? So you see how Jada is trying to peddle this book, right?
Hmm.
And she's doing all of this to peddle books. I think part of the reason why we see a decline in the publishing industry
Hmm.
is partially why I really believe that hip hop is going to decline very badly.
Yeah,
Because I do see certain parallels when I look at patterns, right? So the publishing industry, they're no longer interested in like meeting young authors, developing them, building them up, and allowing them to put out books and then eventually leverage those books to become other endeavors, right?
Right.
They just want the celebrities like a Jada Pinkett.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, Jada Pinkett did not write a single letter in that book, bro. I know for a fact she didn't write a single letter. What they do is the publisher sees an opportunity.
Yeah.
So they'll reach out to her, or they'll reach out to her and her agent, her literary agent or manager, whoever. And they'll say, we have an idea for a book. We have some ghostwriters who will write the book for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the ghostwriter will meet with Jada, follow her around, listen to her, let her tell her entire life story, see how she talks, try to write it in a way that mirrors how she speaks. And then they put out the book, throw Jada's name on it, and it's her book. And she's the author.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? She didn't write shit, but she's the author.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happens in hip hop. Rather than them meeting young, raw talent, developing them, teaching them how to become a star, and
having a story, a journey. Yeah.
Yeah. They just want someone who's big on YouTube or big on TikTok, big on IG, ready made, put them out.
Yeah. Again, we're losing recipes. We're losing Drakes. Right?
Yeah.
We're not going to seeing someone that started from his first album, first project, and the build up to his success. That's never going to happen again.
And that's
right? There's no one that we could create a documentary about. We're not going to have a Yeet documentary. Right?
No. And yeah, like you said, we're losing Drakes. We're losing out on the J.K. Rowlings of the world. Like, we're losing out on these level of talents because these industries have just gotten lazy.
Yeah.
So the idea that like you think that you can, like, for me, someone who writes books, like, you know me, I've been doing this thing for years, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of disrespectful for you to, sit there and tell me that she's an author of a book that I know she didn't write.
Yeah. And it's like, I have a book. Like, wait, Jada Pinkett's on. Why is she on? Oh, she has a book.
A book of what? Like, you didn't write the book, and all you're doing is just you're peddling, and you're throwing you're destroying your I don't even know, her husband, ex-husband, whatever the hell they are. You have to throw dirt on this guy's name for you to sell some books. That's probably not even going to sell all that much if we're being real.
No, she's just going to buy it back. That's all it is.
That's all it is, bro. Like, if she's gonna do a couple of like book signings, whatever, and then the publisher will pay out the New York Times to say this is a New York Times bestseller. It didn't sell shit, but that's how the game is played, right?
Yeah, the game is game.
Yeah, so there's just so much. There's so many parallels.
At the end of the day, our lack of appreciation for it being done the right way, and everything needing to be done just fast and microwave, this microwave society that we're in, it's just leading to us losing that authentic art.
Jordan, this was a good episode.
Yeah, it was a lot to get out of this. Yeah.
A lot. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of great topics, man. It was a great time as always, bro.
Yeah, enjoy it. Thank you for having me on the episode again. Always a pleasure. Always here to be the B mic and come alongside and deliver what I can. It's always great to have conversation, talk that real talk, and just discuss what's on our minds.
Definitely, yeah. More
wire to wire.
That's it, bro. More real talks to come, bro.